Hello, magical experimenters, and welcome to the second installation of this particular series, which is all about how to build resiliency in your magic in your life. Now, I just want to share with you, this is not always an easy thing to do. It can be hard. I mean, I'll just give myself as an example. I woke up this morning and I laid in bed for about a good solid hour or so, feeling depressed and sad about some stuff, and it was hard, but I allowed myself to feel that way. And I think that's actually a really important thing about resiliency that needs to be emphasized is that it's important to allow yourself the space to feel something, um, whatever it is that you're feeling, because you need to recognize that you're feeling it. The more you fight it, the more you actually make it stronger and you cause it to be entrenched within you. And it becomes something that you can't work through because it really holds you down. But, I did that. And part of the reason, so I allowed myself to feel, but part of the thing that really helped me today was also knowing that I had some resources I could draw upon. When you're trying to build resiliency in your life, you have to recognize that fundamentally it has to come from within. Nobody else can make you resilient. I can't make you resilient. Your mom can't make you resilient. Your best friend can't make you resilient. The person or people that you love that in your life can't make you resilient. They can be there for you. They can hold space for you to some degree, and you can talk with them about things, but they can't make you resilient. At the end of the day, you have to make yourself resilient. And, that's not always an easy thing to do. I mean, one suggestion I would always say is like, if you are struggling with anything, make sure that you go and you get some help, like talk to a therapist, for example. If you need to get some medicine or something like that for that kind of purpose, do that. But I also think that it's helpful to really kind of put some thought toward like what kind of resources do I need to have in order to help me become resilient. And I think a lot of times, people try to white knuckle their way through, but you can't really white knuckle your way through a situation. I mean, you can try, but at the end of the day, you really can't do it. I mean, and I know this for a fact because I have tried to white knuckle my way through a couple things in life, and I found that when I tried to white knuckle it, a lot of times I ended up putting a lot of pressure on myself. But when I stopped trying to do that, when I really allowed myself to feel whatever it was that I was feeling at the time, and just to be with that, and then I'd kind of be like, okay, now I got to go out there and I got to get to work, or I got to do something. A huge part of that was that I found some type of motivation in myself. Like for me last summer when I was really when I was really struggling with things, my motivation was kind of like, well, I need to get out there because I need to make some money and I need to occupy my time for a while. I need to be doing something to occupy my mind while I'm feeling this way. I can allow myself to feel this way, but I have to occupy it. But sometimes what it really comes right down to is you find the right resources. So what do I mean by resources? Well, obviously the people in your life are quote unquote a resource. I don't want to really label them that way, but they can be people that you can turn to for help. And to a certain degree you can do that. But you also want to be aware, like how much do you really want to share? Things like that. You have to be careful about that. And I think a friend of mine recently put it as a friend of mine recently put it, you want to make sure that whatever it is that you're going through at the time, that you are aware of it and that you're working through it, but that you're not like you're minimizing the emotional trauma, as it were, which I think is an interesting way to put it. So, like, if you have a tough situation you're going through, you're kind of like, okay, how much of this do I really want to share? And how much don't I want to share? Like, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to help myself? And so this is where finding some of these other resources can be helpful. For me, some resources that I'm finding really helpful for right now, for example, is this book, Articulations. This book called Awareness by Anthony DeMello. Really fascinating book. And love yourself like your life depends on it. Now, you might notice all these have a theme around self-care, around self-love. I mean, what I'm doing right now in particular, and I'm finding this to be a very magical thing, is that each day, I am telling myself, whether it's out loud or mentally, I love myself. And I'm doing this because fundamentally I realized that one of the best ways to build resiliency is to come at it from a place of self-love, self-validation, self-worth. And I think in our culture we're not really taught how to do this. I think we're the idea, for example, of saying I love myself. If you say that to yourself, there's probably at least initially, I mean, I know for me, at least initially, there was a cringe moment where I'm like, do I really want to be saying this to myself? This just seems a little cringy. And I thought to myself, well, why am I feeling that way? And I realized, it's because of how our culture looks at this notion, I think, in some ways. I was like, you know what? I don't care. Like, I'm not going to shame myself. And I'm certainly not going to let my culture shame me into saying something. I am going to say, exactly what I want to say, which is that, I love myself. So, I found that by drawing upon some of these resources, drawing upon some books, drawing upon some videos that I've been watching, drawing upon some other things, it really kind of helped me. It helped me come to some fundamental understanding. And then the other way that I like to build resiliency in myself is I like to look at it in terms of two things. What are the mundane activities I can be doing to build resiliency in my life? And what are the magical activities I can be doing? So for one example for me would be a mundane activity that I've been doing over the course of this last week is I've been cleaning my house. I've been doing a deep clean of my house, like really getting in and cleaning like cleaning everything that I can about the house. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm like, this house that I live in is a reflection of me. It's a reflection of who I am. It is part of me, and I'm part of it. I want to take good care of it. If I'm not taking good care of it, it probably is an indicator that I'm not taking good care of myself. So I got in there and I started really cleaning, and I felt better. It was like, okay, I like how the house feels. I still have to get the floors mopped and swept, but that's pretty much the last thing I need to do. And it feels good knowing that that end is in sight. So I mean, that was a good example of self-care, building that into a thing. The other thing that I've been doing in terms of self-care is, I'm thinking like, okay, what kinds of meals can I cook for myself? What kinds of activities can I be doing? So, going out and hanging out with friends and just doing fun activities. Like I'm going to go to a workshop later today where I'm going to learn about bind runes and leather work. So that'll be kind of neat. I've never done some of that stuff, so I know I'm going to learn something new as a result. Um, and I got together with a friend the other night and we ended up talking about art for a while. So that was really cool. Um, you know, um, and then like magically, it's doing rituals that are helpful for you, and it can be something as simple as doing like kind of like a self-love chant or something like that. But it could also be doing like working with a spirit. Like I worked with a spirit earlier this week where I was doing a purification ritual with that spirit. And I took like I burned the sigil of the spirit and I rubbed the ash on my body and then kind of did this particular chant of, here I am as a new person, purifying myself, cleansing myself. And that was also a really powerful working. So, I think that like when you look at resiliency, you've got to look at it in terms of like how, what can I do to give myself the strength? What resources can I draw upon to give myself the strength that I need? And I think that as you get better and better at doing this, it becomes something that becomes second nature to you. Like there's going to be a certain point where I'm not going to even really have to consciously think I love myself. I'm just going to simply know it. and experience it. And if and I'll start to think it, but it'll be like an automatic thought process that goes through my head. And I think that's a really powerful thing right there, because when you can instill yourself with this core of resiliency, these core behaviors where you're just like, okay, I'm going to do this self-care, it makes a significant difference in how you approach your life. The other way that I look at it is like, if you're doing this self-care, and this is really important, like you know, you also start to get better at recognizing with the self-care how to apply this resiliency to your life in general, because then you start to also say, like, okay, if I'm feeling if I love myself, as an example, if I truly love myself, are these the experiences that I want to be having? And you can apply that to any situation that you're in, and really start to examine, like, where, if I'm in this situation, whatever the situation is, am I operating from a place of self-love? Am I taking care of myself first and foremost? And if I'm doing that, is this the situation or experience that I want to be in? And if it's not, then you can step away from that. And so it becomes a form of boundary setting and protection for yourself in a very real sense. And it allows you to recognize where you are at in a situation. I had I kind of had this realization around this as I've been doing this practice, because I'm like, if I truly love myself, is this the situation or experience I want to be having? And I've found myself stepping away from a couple of experiences, recently, as a result of that, because I'm like, well, this is something that I have to recognize, where this doesn't feel like quite where I want to be. So I think, again, these are things to think about. Like, how do we step into experiences, with that core of resiliency around? Because we don't want to just develop this core of resiliency when we're going through a tough time. We want to have it carry us through the good times as well, and help us recognize how to sustain those good times in a way that is healthy for you. So that's kind of my thought today on resiliency and how to cultivate it. And next week I'm going to switch to a different topic, but I kind of wanted to do a part two on this, because the last one I shared some things and said these are kind of some of the things that I would suggest um, that you can do for yourself. And the books that I recommended, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It, Articulations, and Awareness are all really good books that you can find on Amazon or in bookstores, and I'd recommend checking them out. I know that they've been helping me a lot as I'm reading them, and I have no doubt they'll continue to help me. All right, thank you very much, and have a great day and a great weekend.